I want to welcome everybody here today and thank you for coming, particularly my family. My sister Debbie came from Williams Lake, BC, and her son Aiden is a master's student in engineering at the University of Alberta. And he was really excited about coming to the U of S, to a real university. So, and I want to thank Dr. Williamson for inviting us and for the work that she does on our behalf. We were, as an organization, the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit, we've been looking for an ally like Lindsay for a very long time. So it's an honor for us to be in a relationship with you and to work with you. Today, I'm going to share with you some of my story. And this story, I actually first told a good part of this PowerPoint in May 2010, just 30 days after I'd gotten home from Afghanistan. So this is a living story. We even added a new slide to it today, so it keeps growing. The unit chaplain in the Canadian Armed Forces does three things, the Army chaplain in particular. We provide religious, moral, pastoral care to the soldiers. They're our priority and they're our primary focus. We advise the chain of command on morale, ethical and religious issues, and anything else that this commanding officer or the command team may need. And we care for soldiers, especially in a time of need. The two teams, as we heard, are the two units that I worked with. The Operational Mentor and Liaison Team is actually a NATO type formation, and it's designed to for a military to team up with another military and to coach that other military. So we were mentoring the 1205 Brigade of the Afghan National Army, which was like 3 full rifle regiments, combat service support, engineers, the whole thing. There was thousands and thousands of soldiers involved, and we were a unit of about 225, primarily made up of folks from the 3rd Battalion of the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. And because of the work we did, we were all over Kandahar province. We weren't just down in the Dand, or we were all over the place. And then I provided care to the military police who did policing functions on CAF. We had a detention barracks that they ran. They provided close protection all over Afghanistan for Canadians. And we had a group of them mentoring the Afghan National Police. And so this is what we do. This is December the 30th, 2009, the last big mass casualty in Afghanistan for the Canadians. There were 3 dead on the battlefield and 2 died in hospital. This is Father Jim McKay saying the last rites over a young reservist, a sergeant from Edmonton. And then Jim and I praying with the team after that. So there were 3 deaths on the battlefield and 2 deaths in the hospital. Plus there was a whole load of injured people as well. During our tour, we had 17 Canadian casualties, deaths, but double that in terms of the Americans that were working with us. And so the next day, it's a real priority to have the deceased Canadians go home quickly. Situations handled like a crime. So there's the National Investigation Service of the military police will treat the whole thing like a crime. They look at the bodies in the morgue, but we try to get them out the door. So 24 hours later, the comrades of the deceased are paying their last respects, and then we have a ramp ceremony. This was a ramp ceremony that I did. The lead casket is Michelle Lang, the Canadian journalist from Calgary. I'd gotten to know Michelle. She was with us up at Forward Operating Base Wilson, or not Wilson, but Massamgar, shortly after she got into theater. And she was supposed to go out on a foot patrol, but she didn't feel confident in her own training. So our whole unit was going out on this patrol, and the commanding officer told me to stay behind and to take care of Michelle. So we spent the day together, which was kind of good for me because I got her to write a few stories on the work that we were doing with some of the locals and all that. So that was good. And I saw her, I spent Christmas Day with her because she came in to Wilson with the whole entourage, you know, when the CDS shows up with the chief of the defense staff and all these important people come in, and she was tagging along with them. So I got to spend Christmas Day with her and show her all around Wilson. Anyway, I saw her again on the 27th of December, and then this happened she died on the battlefield. This is just this is an Old Corps, which is an Afghan National Army base. It was originally a Soviet Army base in the middle of Kandahar city. And you can see the equipment like a tank park that the Russians just left, kind of like what we did. And these kids that's their playground because their dads are in the Afghan National Army and they live in mud huts on that base and they play on those tanks. And we were out on a foot patrol. It was early December and we were just sharing. Some of the guys' parents had sent over presents for the kids, and that's what we were out there handing out stuff. Yeah, so it was wonderful to meet the kids. Lots of them surprisingly could speak English because they were teaching English in the schools. And one kid said to me, "I want to be a doctor." And I said, you can be a doctor. Your country needs you to be a doctor." This was our first casualty in Canada, or in Kandahar. And I included this today because Justin walked these halls. He's a graduate of the University of Saskatchewan. He started his Army career in the North Saskatchewan Regiment. I'd known Justin for 8 years prior to his death. He was on one of the Afghan National Police mentoring teams. And what happened, they were near Three Tank Hill, which is near Massamgar. And they were on a foot patrol and the Afghans rushed forward and Justin thought it was an ambush. So he was moving to help them and he stepped on a landmine and he was killed. He left behind Alana, his wife, and his 3-year-old son at the time, who I realized today is 18 years old now. So Justin, yeah, nice young Saskatoon boy. And the other connection is this. That's Sergeant Hugh Cairns. Do you recognize that name? Sergeant Hugh Cairns, VC. There is a statue of Sergeant Hugh Cairns in Kinsman Park, just across the river. There's a street named after him, and my armory, the armory I served out of, was named after him. And he's my grandfather's great-grandfather's brother. No, he's my grandfather's brother. And he joined 46th Battalion, South Saskatchewan. With his brothers. Harry, my grandfather, was a cook with the 1st Canadian Field Hospital, and Hugh and Albert were in the 46th Battalion at Vimy Ridge. They fought at the Pimple. That was the toughest fight that day, or that operation. It lasted 2 days. Later on that summer, Hugh was decorated with a Distinguished Conduct Medal. And then at the DQ line in the last 200-day push, Albert was killed at the DQ line in mid-September, and that really embittered Hugh. He led a patrol into a city called Valenciennes on the 31st of October, and with his small crew, they captured a company plus of Germans. There was a gunfight. Cairns had the Lewis gun. He did his job, but he took a bullet to the stomach and he died the next day. Hugh Cairns was the last Canadian Victoria Cross, last Canadian to receive a Victoria Cross in World War I, and he's the only non-commissioned officer to have a street named after him in France. But the connection is that that's what we grew up with in the Cairns family. That was, and so a lot of my cousins, the Cairnses, they joined the army. And in fact, I was in Afghanistan with my cousin Dean at the same time. So if you pick a fight with Canada, you pick a fight with the Cairnses. In about the end of January, I was at Camp Hero. One of my colleagues, who was the medical mentor in the omelet, took me there, and I met Lou, who was an American, Afghan-American, who had fled Kabul in 1996 when the Taliban were taking over. She had trained in Afghanistan as a doctor, and she returned with the Americans as a cultural advisor. And she said to me the first day I met her, "Padre, I want you to come and meet somebody." And so she took me to meet Abdul and Abdullah. Now, we have clouded their faces for obvious reasons. These are old pictures, but the Taliban are in power now. So that's why that's the way it is. And she introduced me to Abdul. And Abdul Abdullah, his father was a single dad, and he sold petrol, and he was out one day working, and Abdul lit himself up on fire trying to operate the gas stove, and he burned himself from his chin down to his mid-chest, and as he lay on the mud hut floor, his chin fused to his neck and his shoulders were pulled forward. So the Americans decided to take him back to Camp Hero. What are the prospects that there's a plastic surgeon there? A pediatric plastic surgeon. A pediatric plastic surgeon who specialized in facial injuries. An American reservist was working in the hospital, and he started the process of skin grafting and working with Abdul to help him get better. And when I was leaving the hospital that day, Lou said to me, "Look, Padre, we have an opportunity to do something good." She didn't ask me for anything. She didn't need to. So I went back to Kandahar Airfield, and I gathered up some toys. The Americans always had a pile of toys, the American chaplains. I don't know where they got them from. They always had toys. So I got some stuff from the Americans, and I passed the hat around, and I gave them some money. And I sent an email to my church in Prince Albert, and I said, take up an offering and send me $300, because people in Afghanistan can live off 100 American dollars a month. So $300 was a lot of money. And then tragedy struck. So we were out on a patrol up near Forward Operating Base Wilson, and there was a patrol out mentoring, and the driver of the Bison vehicle that I rolled in when I was off of CAF was this young man, Darren Fitzpatrick, 21 years old, same age as my daughter. And he wanted to go out on a foot patrol. He's a soldier. He's an infantry soldier. He just doesn't want to drive around Afghanistan. He wants to go out and do the real thing. And so the RSM, the regimental sergeant major, said, okay. So he was out on this patrol, and he was giving protection to our dog guy, to the guy who handled our bomb sniffing dog. And he was coming around a mud hut wall, and the wall blew out, took his legs off high, and his rifle butt went up into his left elbow. And anyway, the young lieutenant who was leading the patrol that day was able to tourniquet him. They got a bird in, and they were able to get him into Kandahar Airfield, into the Royal 3 Hospital, and he was bleeding out. Father Jim was there, and they were, as much as they were pumping fluids into him, they were coming out. But the surgeon told me that Darren looked at her and said, "I want to live." And she said to him, "You're gonna live." And they were able to stabilize him and save him. And they bandaged him up, and we went back from Wilson down to the Royal 3 Hospital. We were there in time to say goodbye and to pray with him. And they sent him to Bagram Airfield. And they said, "Oh, he's not going to make it to Bagram. He'll never make it." He made it to Bagram. And he was there for a few days, and they debrided him, and they packaged him up, and they sent him to Landstuhl, Germany, which is a NATO hospital that we shared with the Americans. And they were able to treat him and stabilize him, and most importantly, bring his mom and dad out, Jim and Colleen, and his 2 brothers from Prince George, Alberta, or Prince George, BC. And they spent time with him, and 10 days later, he was stable enough. They were going to send him, they sent him back home to Edmonton. He got into the University Hospital, and 8 hours later, he died of septic shock. And so that was just, it was really, we're into the 6th month of our tour. It was devastating. Darren had saved my life. We had been out on a patrol up the Arghandab, and we were supposed to go down to Highway 1 on Red Dog Road, but 2 of the culverts were mined. So we went out into the desert on a track, and Darren stayed on the track, and the vehicle behind us got hit with an IED. Fortunately, the vehicle behind us was an up-armored vehicle, and there was only 2 guys in it. They were injured a bit, but if it would have been our vehicle that was hit, there was 8 of us in the back of the Bison, and we would have been it wouldn't have been pretty. So he saved my life. And it was a really, it was a difficult day. So I decided that day I was going to help one Afghan boy. And I said to my church, "Where's the money? Where is the offering I asked you to send?" They gave me $1,000. bucks. I took that like that was exactly what I needed, was that kind of support, $1,000 American. You know, I had to go home at some point. So I went home with my colleagues, and Lou stayed behind with the boy, and she ended up in Bagram Airfield working with the Americans, and she took the boy with her. She took Abdul with her. And she was able to continue to care for him, and she stayed in touch, sent me pictures, emails from time to time. And I told this story in PA. And this is where the first part of the story, that last, that's where it used to end. That's where this PowerPoint used to end. I told this story in PA, and over the first time I told it, that we didn't even plan it. We just took up an offering, $1,000. And the more I told the story, the more people gave, and we ended up sending Abdul and Abdullah $2,000. It was really, we felt great about it, being able to support them even after we got home. And then one summer, in July 2011, like I said, Abdul was recovering, and he was healing, he was getting better. And then these pictures came. That's the boy in Cincinnati, at a Shriners Hospital, at a burn hospital. Lou worked with an American doctor to get him there, and he learned to speak English. He went to school for a while. Like, he can move his arms. He looks beautiful. And that was really, really important to me, because I thought if I kept telling that story, nothing would happen to me. You just have to tell the good story, right? And you'll be all right. So I would tell that story to avoid the truth, because the truth got worse and worse. And then I couldn't hide from my PTSD anymore. So this is a list of my which shows up for me around PTSD. But this list is an ordinary PTSD list. This is common among people who struggle with PTSD, social isolation, denial, broken relationships, the destruction of a family. I mean, I lost my job. I lost my job basically in Prince Albert because of my PTSD. And the way it affects you and your judgment. So high levels of anxiety, high blood pressure, the irritable bowel syndrome, that can keep you inside all day long. So there it is. That's and there's others, like you can move that around. That's my list, and it's a pretty common list. And then my therapist said to me one day, I was having trouble in public spaces, and she said, "Why don't you get a service dog?" And I said, "A service dog? Why would I want a dog? I can't even take care of myself." I had no idea, what a dog could do at all. But I told my wife, Rayanne, and she researched it. And Mandy was available. And she was available for a number of reasons. She hadn't quite connected with any veteran to this point. And the guy who trained her wanted to give her a good solid chance with me. So we went over and met Serge Lemieux, the trainer, and he said to me, "Walk across the training hall and collapse at that door." And I did. And the minute I dropped, that's what happened. And she chose me. And she's been with me ever since. So, getting her has been a life-changing event. And because of the Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit, a veteran-run charity, I've been able to find a new normal in my life. And I work with my friends like Dwayne and Tina, who are here today. And we work to help people in our situation get service dogs and begin to understand what it means to live with PTSD. So Serge Lemieux brought her and I together, and we trained and we became a team. We train our dogs to the BC standard. The BC Guide Dog Standard is legislated. You can look it up online. It's 40 points that the dogs have to meet, and our dogs have to requalify as certified dogs every 2 years, so they keep training. So these are the things that Mandy does for me. She was trained to wake veteran up if he was having nightmares. And the third night in, we weren't even hardly bonded yet. She was pulling the sheets back and waking me up. She works a lot at night. We have a night routine. She comforts me at night and then sleeps down on the floor at the end of the bed. And around 6 o'clock, she gets up. It's easier in the hotel room because the bed's not as high here. I've learned a king size bed. That's great for you and your wife and your dog. Anyway, she does that. So these are the things she does. She's constantly watching over me. She's beside me. She'll press into me if she thinks I need a message. And she was a key part of my stabilization process so I could actually do treatment. The best that we could work on prior to me getting Mandy was containment, which means you just contain the trauma. You don't really deal with it. I was able to go through most of it because of Mandy. That's just before COVID. But we go shopping all the time, and that's called legs, and then that way I can look around and still know where she is. She's relieved my wife Rayanne of the burden of having to constantly worry about me. At the time I lost 20 pounds. Mandy's gained a few more pounds, but she lost 10 and I lost 20 because we were walking more. I'm down to one medication now. I'm more physically fit. I sleep better. And the first time I met Mandy, I smiled, and I hadn't smiled in years. So, she's helped me to feel hope and joy. And yeah, our life is a lot better because we have Mandy. The Canadian Veteran Service Dog Unit provides trained service dogs to injured veterans and first responders free of charge. We have about 50 qualified teams now. And like I said, we train to the BC standards. And we're growing. We're growing up and down. We're stretched out in the Ottawa Valley from Petawawa, North Bay, Petawawa, right down to Montreal. And we have members in Barrie, Ontario, Orangeville. We've got a couple of members down in Toronto, and we're moving. We're trying to grow, but we're also looking for organizations like the one here in Saskatchewan, Ottawas. We're looking for other service dog providers and seeing if we can team with them, what we can learn from them, and how we might be able to support one another. We have a puppy program. I'll tell you more how that's affected me. Right now we have 7 puppies in training, I think. Bennett actually just got paired with a injured paramedic, and all the things I said to you about Mandy, he's now saying all those things about Benny. Lots of our new members say the same things that the other members have said in the past. Anyway, Bennett was lots of fun. Bennett was from Bennett Property Shop. They made a big donation, so we named a dog Bennett. Like I said, our dogs change lives, they save lives, and they save families. Rayanne had said 7 years ago, I don't have to be a service dog anymore. And we had a new member come in last March. I met his wife in August. She said, I'm not his service dog anymore. It happens time and time again. That same member, his wife said that his kids like him more because they go for a walk with dad and the dog, and dad's actually happy. So it saves lives, changes lives, and saves families. We've seen how a dog saves lives more than once. So we're coming to the end here. And as I've been getting ready to reflect on today, I just wanted to take a minute to add something that I haven't actually shared with Dr. Williamson. But that's Mandy in the right-hand picture, and behind her is Sophie. And that's Missy. Missy is Rayanne, my wife's dog. And Sophie came to us last September. The unit got her as a puppy. We didn't really have a plan around Sophie because she came to us suddenly because the dog breeder, gave her to us basically. So I said I would take her, and that I would foster her. And I was thinking about my relationship with Sophie and my relationship with Mandy, and the difference in quality and the difference in the nature of the relationship. Mandy was trained through methods of coercion. Sophie's being trained through methods of, what do you call it? Support, positive reinforcement. That's it. So lots of treats, right? Mandy, she was trained by Serge Lemieux. So every time we would get together with Serge Lemieux, Mandy would lose her mind because she was totally in love with Serge. She just, her and Serge had bonded. Her and I are bonded now, but she has a special place in her heart for Serge. And I think because of the coercion training, she always was close to me, but just a little standoffish. When I got Sophie, she was 10 months old and she didn't know anything. She wasn't even house trained. And so we started from scratch and using positive reinforcement. I have a bond with that dog. I now understand more clearly Mandy's bond with Serge because I have the same bond with Sophie. But I'm like Sophie's first. I'm the guy, right? I'm Mr. Fun Treat Train guy. And with Mandy, I'm just like I'm her old. Mandy and I are like a glove and a hand. And I don't know who the hand is or who the glove is. From time to time, Mandy's the hand. This is what you need to do. From time to time, I'm the hand and she's the glove. But that's how we're so close. That's how we function. With Sophie and I, it's like, what are we going to do now? What are we doing now? And, you know, she's just so happy to be with me. But that's just the difference in the nature of the relationship. The other thing that in my relationship with Mandy is that she's the adult in the relationship. I'm the one that's learned from her. When I got her, she was fully trained. She knew what she was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. And I'd screw things up from time to time. She never did anything wrong. Even if I gave her the wrong command, she did the command that I wanted her to do. Because so she taught me. She was the adult in the relationship. And she would tell me, okay, it's time to leave here. We've got to get out of here. Let's go. And Marianne would tell me, listen to your dog. And that's just, she's parented me to the point where I can be a good trainer partner with Sophie, and I can, you know, connect with Sophie in a different way. So I was just thinking of the different relationships that I have with these two dogs. And I just want to end by thanking all of you for coming out today and for being with us. That's Mandy and I at the Peacekeeping Memorial in downtown Ottawa. And that's my good friend and colleague, Dwayne Sawyer, at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier with his beautiful dog, Rex. He now has Nala. So